Emma woke up, not quite understanding what had woken her. The early Saturday morning was perfect for sleeping in and taking a break from the crazy work week. She yawned sweetly, turned over, and snuggled closer to her husband's back. But something continued to disturb her, a rustling, a knocking sound. Emma shook off the remnants of sleep and sat up in bed. Sure enough, someone was in the apartment. She didn't need to think hard to figure out who could visit so early on a weekend. Of course, it could only be Linda, the beloved mother of her beloved husband. From the start, Emma and Linda had a mutual dislike for each other, they mixed like oil and water. Emma, however, had never tried to turn her then-future husband against his mother, but her mother-in-law had made it her life's work to do precisely that. From her side, she had used all the classic tactics, even those that fell into the category of dirty tricks. If Linda found out that her son had movie tickets for a date with his girlfriend, she could easily feign a semblance of a heart attack and demand that Daniel stay home, threatening that he would find her cold dead body upon his return if he didn't. Naturally, Daniel would drop everything, call Emma to apologize for canceling, and stay by his mother's side. Then, an hour later, when it was too late for the movie, his mother would miraculously feel better than ever. Daniel saw through his mother's theatrics, of course, but he couldn't bring himself to stop falling for her manipulations. On other occasions, Emma and Daniel might be celebrating a birthday in the merry company of friends, but then Daniel's mother would call, demanding that her son immediately drive her to their summer house because she forgot to check if she had locked the tool shed. Under Emma's disapproving gaze and his friend's quiet giggling, Daniel had no choice but to leave the party, drive his mother there and back, wasting a considerable amount of time, and return to find his girlfriend fuming about spending the evening alone yet again. Emma and Daniel's relationship was often seriously jeopardized because of this. Emma understood that such behavior marked her man as a good son but a lousy husband. And she needed a husband, not a son, a husband who wouldn't prioritize pleasing his mother over helping his own wife and later, perhaps, their children. The time for a decision came when Emma truly fell ill. The night before, she had been completely healthy, but by morning, she couldn't get out of bed due to a high fever. She called Daniel, asking him to come over and bring her medicine. He agreed, saying he would be there in 15 minutes and started to get dressed. But it wasn't that simple. When Daniel's mother saw him hastily pulling on his pants and shirt, she asked where he was going so early on a Sunday morning. Hearing that Emma was sick and needed help, Linda loudly protested that her son had found himself a born actress who was manipulating him and making him look like a fool. Just don't go. Show some backbone, she insisted. Nothing will happen to your Emma, mark my words. She's just faking it to pull you away from your mother. Take off your coat. Don't go anywhere. Tell her your plans have changed. Tell her you can't come, and that's that. Daniel stood frozen in the hallway with his coat in his hands. He understood that his mother was wrong and that his wife was waiting for him. He couldn't treat his girlfriend the way he wouldn't want to be treated himself. Hastily throwing the coat over his shoulders, he was fastening it on the run. At this significant moment, a turning point occurred in the relationship between mother and son. Suddenly, Daniel saw the whole situation for what it was worth. His mother was suggesting that he abandon his woman and fail to come to her rescue just to check if she was pretending or not. Wasn't the price of such a test too high? Emma was later diagnosed with pneumonia and was treated for a long time. Daniel was by her side almost the entire time, and after she recovered, he proposed to her. His mother took the news that her son was getting married as a clear sign of her personal defeat. She showed up at the wedding in a long black dress, looking like some fantasy snake, making it evident that today was a day of mourning for her. The newlyweds decided to live at Emma's place. She had inherited her own apartment from her grandmother, but Daniel was in no hurry to tell his mother about this. Linda was still angry at Daniel for daring to go to the registry office with this cow, as she called Emma. And if he had told his mother that they were also living in Emma's own apartment and that her daughter-in-law had her own place, there was no telling how Linda would react. So the young man lied, hoping it was for the best, that they were renting an apartment together and saving for their own place. However, this lie didn't save the young family from constant interference in their private lives. His mother still hovered nearby despite Daniel's efforts to protect the boundaries of his own family. But alas, it didn't always work. Using her manipulation tactics, Linda somehow managed to get the right to come to their home, ostensibly with the best intentions of helping the young family and imposing her own rules. But the worst part was that she also managed to get a key from Daniel, and now she came without asking at any time of the day. Emma got up and trudged to the kitchen. Now she would probably have to listen to a lecture about what a terrible housekeeper and a bad wife she was. Linda would undoubtedly draw these conclusions from finding a cup in the sink and an empty shelf in the refrigerator. How tired she was of these early visits. But it seemed her mother-in-law came up with something special this morning. Judging by the kitchen surfaces, Linda had prepared thoroughly for this visit. Bags, boxes, and packages all stood in abundance on Emma's kitchen counters. "Well, what are you standing there for? Help me," Linda ordered, seeing her daughter-in-law in the doorway. "Today is a special day for me. It's the anniversary of my marriage to my late husband, Daniel's father, so we're going to celebrate here at my son's place. I live in a one-room apartment, and my son has a two-room one. Guests will come, and we'll honor his memory. So come on, get down to it. Don't just stand there with your hands on your hips, get a move on." Emma noticed that this supposedly rented apartment was referred to by her mother-in-law as if it belonged solely to Daniel. And invading their space without permission on a weekend morning was too much, even by Linda's standards. Emma turned around and went back to the bedroom where her husband was peacefully sleeping. Awakened at such an odd hour, Daniel struggled to understand the complaints coming at him from both his wife and his mother. Trying to appease both women, he asked Emma not to overreact and his mother to be patient and not to push it. It all ended with Emma going to watch TV while Daniel, under the accompaniment of his mother's lamentations about how he married an incompetent woman, started helping his mother cook food. The guests started arriving at 10 o'clock in the morning. Linda greeted them all as if she were the hostess here. She invited them into the kitchen and seated them at the table, while Emma, like a hermit, stayed in the bedroom. Eventually, Emma had enough. When she emerged from her voluntary confinement to make herself some coffee in a daze, her mother-in-law disapprovingly grunted, pointing at her. "Look at this. This is my son's so-called wife. She can't do anything. She doesn't respect our family. Sits there alone, treating us as unworthy company. A worthy company, as you say, comes by invitation, not barging in like peasants on a Saturday morning," Emma replied calmly. Linda even rose from her chair. "How dare you? This is my son's apartment. I come whenever I please. You have no say here." Emma didn't even have time to protest when something happened that no one really expected. Apparently, to cement her authority, Linda stepped toward Emma, raised her hand, and slapped Emma across her left cheek. Emma gasped, everyone fell silent. Daniel jumped up and rushed to his wife. Emma looked up at Linda, who seemed to be on top of the world. "Well, my dear, what do you say to this? This will teach you a lesson. Your son's apartment, you say?" Emma turned to the guests and said, "My husband is too afraid to admit to his mother that we don't rent this place, but I actually own it." "Yes, this is my private property. So pretty please, with sugar on top, get your things and get off my property now, or I'll call the police. The guests began to stir. It seemed they already sensed that something had gone very wrong at this family gathering. Only Linda tried to argue with them, insisting that the girl was lying. Well, Daniel, maybe you can clarify the situation for your mother, Emma turned to her husband. All he could manage to say, without lifting his eyes to his mother, was, "She's telling the truth." Suddenly, Emma felt disgusted. What was this half-man doing in her kitchen and in her life? For that matter, his mother had slapped her, and he remained silent and still hadn't thrown her out of the apartment. "Pack your things," she said harshly to her stunned husband. "Pack your things and go with them. I don't want to see you." All of Daniel's objections shattered against the impenetrable expression on his wife's face. The unlucky guy had no choice but to pack his bags and follow his overbearing mother. The first thing Emma did after closing the door behind them was to promise herself that she would never again get involved with a mama's boy. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions for Emma. The silence in the apartment was both a relief and a void. She spent the first few days reclaiming her space, rearranging furniture, and scrubbing every corner to erase any lingering presence of her husband and his mother. It was therapeutic, yet the silence reminded her of the life she had just upheaved. One afternoon, her friend Sophie came over with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "I heard what happened," Sophie said as she poured the wine. "Are you okay?" Emma sighed, taking a sip. "I think I am. It's been a long time coming. I just couldn't take it anymore." Sophie nodded sympathetically. "You did the right thing. No one should have to live under such control. You deserve better." They spent the evening talking, laughing, and reminiscing about old times. Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders, grateful for the support of her friend. Meanwhile, Daniel was struggling with the reality of his situation. Living with his mother again was not easy. Linda's control over his life was even more apparent without Emma's buffer. He began to realize just how much his wife had put up with. The constant nagging, the unending demands, everything seemed magnified in Emma's absence. One evening, while sitting alone in his room, Daniel found himself missing Emma's presence. He missed her laughter, her kindness, and even her firm stance against his mother. He realized he had taken her for granted, letting his mother come between them time and time again. Determined to make things right, Daniel decided to visit Emma. He needed to apologize, to explain himself, and to see if there was any way they could start over. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he had to try. When he arrived at Emma's apartment, he hesitated at the door. Gathering his courage, he knocked softly. Emma opened the door, surprised to see him standing there. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" "I needed to talk to you," he said, his voice sincere. "I realize now how much I've let my mother interfere in our lives. I'm so sorry for everything. I miss you, Emma. Can we talk?" Emma looked at him, her emotions a mixture of surprise, relief, and caution. "Come in," she said finally. They sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where so many arguments had taken place. Daniel took a deep breath and began to explain everything he had come to understand. He talked about his mother's control, his own failings, and his deep regret. Emma listened quietly, her eyes reflecting the pain and hurt she had endured. When he finished, there was a long silence. "Daniel," she said softly, "I appreciate your apology. But things can't go back to the way they were. I need to know that you'll put me first, that you'll stand up for our relationship." "I will," Daniel promised. "I know I've made mistakes, but I want to make it right." I love you, Emma. Please give me another chance. Emma looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity. She saw the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had been buried under his mother's control. All right, she said finally. We'll try. But things have to change. They spent the next few months rebuilding their relationship. Daniel made a conscious effort to set boundaries with his mother, refusing to let her interfere in their lives. It wasn't easy, and there were many difficult conversations, but slowly, things began to improve. Linda, sensing the shift in her son's priorities, tried to assert her control, but Daniel stood firm. He made it clear that his marriage came first and that she needed to respect their space. It was a hard adjustment for Linda, but eventually, she began to back off. Emma and Daniel's relationship grew stronger as they learned to communicate better and support each other. They rediscovered the love that had brought them together in the first place, finding new ways to connect and share their lives. One sunny afternoon, as they sat on their newly renovated balcony, Emma looked at Daniel and smiled. We've come a long way, haven't we? Daniel nodded, taking her hand in his. We have. And I'm so grateful for you, Emma. Thank you for giving me another chance. Emma leaned in and kissed him softly. We're a team, Daniel. And we'll get through anything together. Their journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also brought them closer than ever. With renewed commitment and love, Emma and Daniel looked forward to a future where they could build their life on their own terms, free from the shadows of the past.